The silk of the wedding dress felt like a dream against my skin as Amelia zipped it up, her fingers lingering on my back. "You look breathtaking, Alondra. This is us finally stepping into our future together," she whispered, her eyes shining with love. Suddenly the curtain was yanked open with a violent tug, and the world exploded in flashes and shouts as reporters surged forward. "Alondra Voss, daughter of Senator Richard Voss, is this your secret girlfriend? Are you getting married in secret? Does your family know you're a lesbian?" The questions hit like bullets. I froze, my heart slamming against my ribs, Amelia gripping my hand so tight it hurt. The private bridal boutique in Manhattan we had chosen for its discretion now felt like a trap. How did they know we were here today of all days? Paparazzi cameras clicked relentlessly, security guards from the store trying and failing to push them back. My mind raced back to the 4 years we had kept this hidden, the stolen weekends, the coded messages, the constant fear of being seen. Amelia and I had driven up from DC 2 days ago, telling everyone I was visiting old college friends for a quick girls' trip. The dress was supposed to be for our private commitment ceremony next month, just us 2 witnesses and a quiet officiant far from the spotlight. Now that dream lay shattered on the marble floor of the fitting room. I grabbed my coat and Amelia's arm, pulling her toward the back exit, but the flashes followed us out into the alley. By the time we reached my rented SUV, my phone was already vibrating nonstop with alerts. Twitter, no X now, was blowing up with the hashtag Alondra Voss exposed. Photos of me in the gown, Amelia behind me, her hands on my waist, were everywhere, the headlines screaming Senator Voss daughter caught in secret lesbian wedding dress fitting. I could feel the blood draining from my face as Amelia drove us out of the city, her knuckles white on the wheel. "Alondra, we need to call someone," she said, her voice trembling but steady. "Who?" I snapped back, my chest tight with panic. My father, the man who had built his entire career on family values, traditional marriage and conservative principles. The same man who had once said in a closed-door meeting that the gay agenda was destroying America. I had overheard that conversation at age 21, and it had sealed my silence ever since. Amelia pulled over on a side street near Central Park, her hand reaching for mine. "We will figure this out together," she promised, but I could see the fear in her eyes too. She was a freelance photographer from a working-class family in Queens, no political dynasty to protect her, no trust fund to cushion the fall. For her, this exposure meant potential lost clients, judgmental stares from her own parents who had only met me as her roommate. For me, it meant the end of everything I had been groomed to inherit. The drive back to DC that night was silent except for the occasional ping of new notifications. When we finally reached my apartment in Georgetown, the doorman gave me a strange look but said nothing. Inside, I collapsed on the couch, scrolling through the damage. My father's office had already issued a no-comment statement, but the damage was done. My mother had texted 3 times, "Call me now." My brother Ethan, the golden son and aspiring congressman, had sent a single message, "What the hell, Alondra?" Amelia made tea, her movements mechanical as she processed it all. I stared at the dress still in its garment bag on the chair, the one I had planned to wear for her. This was supposed to be our beginning, not our destruction. By morning, the story had hit every major network. Good Morning America led with it, framing it as the ultimate political family scandal. I watched from my bed, phone in hand, as pundits debated whether my father's re-election campaign could survive a lesbian daughter. Amelia sat beside me, her head on my shoulder. We had built a life in the shadows, careful, calculated, safe. Now the light was blinding, and I wondered if we could survive it. The knock on the door came at 9 a.m. sharp. 2 Secret Service agents stood there, my father's detail. "Miss Voss, your father requests your immediate presence at the family estate. No excuses." I looked at Amelia, her face pale. This was it, the moment I had dreaded for years. As I packed a small bag, my mind spun with the choices ahead: deny everything, claim it was a misunderstanding, or stand in my truth and watch my world burn. The car ride to Virginia was the longest of my life, the agents silent in the front seat. When we pulled up to the sprawling Voss estate, the gates felt like they were closing behind me forever. My father was waiting in the study, his face a mask of controlled fury. "Alondra," he said, his voice low, "what have you done?" I swallowed hard, the weight of 30 years of expectations crashing down. "Nothing, I didn't want to do, Dad," I replied, but even as the words left my mouth, I knew the real storm was just beginning. The confrontation lasted hours, my mother crying in the corner, my brother pacing. They wanted damage control, a press conference where I would call it a prank, a costume party gone wrong. But every time I opened my mouth to agree, the image of Amelia in that fitting room, her smile so pure, flashed before me. By evening, I was exhausted, emotionally drained, and no closer to a decision. My father gave me an ultimatum: 24 hours to fix this or consider yourself cut off from this family and everything it stands for. I left the study and called Amelia, her voice the only anchor left. They want me to lie, I told her. What do you want, Alondra? She asked softly. The question hung between us, heavy with the cost of every possible answer. That night I barely slept, replaying every choice that had led me here, from the first time I kissed Amelia in a rainy parking lot to the day I introduced her as just a friend at family dinners. The exposure had ripped away the curtain, not just in that boutique but on my entire life. And as dawn broke over the estate, I knew the hardest decisions were still ahead: the betrayals, the sacrifices, the awakening that would either free me or destroy me completely. Morning light filtered through the heavy curtains of my childhood bedroom, but it brought no comfort. My phone showed over 500 new messages, most from reporters, some from old classmates who had suddenly remembered my name. Amelia had texted at midnight, "I love you no matter what." Those words kept me going as I dressed in a simple blouse and slacks, trying to look like the composed daughter they expected. Downstairs, breakfast was a battlefield. My father sat at the head of the table, newspaper open to the front page with my photo splashed across it. My mother pushed eggs around her plate, eyes red from crying. Ethan, my younger brother, scrolled through his own feed, muttering about poll numbers. "Alondra, we need a plan," my father said without looking up. "The party leadership called this morning. They're worried." I sat down, my appetite gone. "What kind of plan?" I asked, knowing the answer. "Deny it all," he replied, finally meeting my eyes. "Say it was a publicity stunt for some charity, or better yet, claim the woman in the photo isn't even you, that it's AI generated or a lookalike." The words tasted like ash. I glanced at my mother, who nodded weakly. "Darling, think of your future, your father's legacy. The family name." Guilt twisted in my gut. I had spent my life protecting that name, volunteering for his campaigns, smiling in family photos while hiding the truth. Amelia and I had met at a gallery opening 4 years ago. She had been photographing the event. I had been there as the dutiful daughter representing the Voss Foundation. One conversation about art and politics turned into coffee, then late nights, then love. We kept it hidden because I knew what coming out would cost. Now the cost was here, and it was higher than I imagined. "I can't lie forever," I said quietly. My father's fist hit the table. "This isn't about forever, it's about now. Your brother is running for state senate next year. Do you want to drag him down too?" Ethan looked away, but I saw the flash of resentment. He had always been the perfect one, straight as football star, now polished politician in training. My secret threatened all of it. After breakfast I escaped to the garden, my old refuge. Amelia called and I answered on the first ring. "They're asking me to erase us," I told her, tears finally coming. Her voice cracked. "Then don't. We can face this together." "But how?" I whispered. "My trust fund, my job at the foundation, everything is tied to them." She was silent for a moment. "I know the price, Alondra. I've always known. But I won't ask you to choose me over your family. That choice is yours." Her words cut deep because she was right. I had to choose, and either way someone I loved would pay. Back inside, my father had called in the family lawyer and a crisis PR expert. They laid out the strategy, a tearful interview where I would say I was experimenting, confused by the pressures of public life. The photos would be dismissed as doctored. I listened numbly, my mind replaying the fitting room, the way Amelia's laugh had filled the space before the curtain tore everything apart. That afternoon the betrayal came from an unexpected place. My best friend since college, Sarah, arrived at the estate unannounced. We had grown up together, her father a major donor to my dad's campaigns. I thought she was there to support me, but when we sat in the sunroom she avoided my eyes. "Alondra, I need to tell you something," she said, voice low. "I saw you and Amelia at the boutique last week. I was shopping for my own wedding dress across the hall. I mentioned it to my assistant just in passing. I didn't know she would." She trailed off. The pieces clicked. Sarah's assistant had sold the tip to the tabloids for $10,000. My best friend had unknowingly lit the fuse. "How could you?" I whispered, the hurt raw. "I didn't mean for this," she cried, but the damage was done. Another layer of trust shattered. That evening I drove back to the city to see Amelia. We met at a small cafe far from cameras, her hand finding mine under the table. I told her about Sarah, the ultimatum, the plan to lie. She listened without interrupting, then said softly, "If you deny us now, it won't stop at one lie. It will eat you alive." "I know," I replied, "but the alternative terrifies me. Losing everything." She squeezed my hand. "You won't lose me. The words were simple but they anchored me. As we left the cafe, a photographer snapped one last photo from across the street. The cycle continued. Back at my apartment, I stared at the ceiling, weighing the scales. On one side, family legacy, security, the life I was born into. On the other, Amelia, love, authenticity, the woman who saw me not as Voss heir but as Alondra. The night stretched long with inner voices screaming both sides. By 3 a.m., I knew I couldn't sleep. I texted Amelia one line, "I'm scared but I think I'm ready to stop hiding." Her reply came instantly, "Then we face it together no matter the cost." The decision was made, but the consequences were only beginning to unfold. The next morning my father called demanding an answer. I told him the truth. "I won't lie, Dad. This is who I am." The silence on the line was deafening, then his voice cold as steel. "Then you leave me no choice." The call ended, and with it, the last thread connecting me to the only world I had ever known. The press conference was scheduled for Friday, but I refused to attend. Instead, I posted a short statement on my private social media that quickly leaked. "My name is Alondra Voss, and yes, the woman in the photos is my girlfriend Amelia Reyes. We are in love and planning a future together. I ask for privacy as my family and I navigate this." The backlash was immediate and brutal. Conservative outlets called me a traitor to family values. Liberal ones hailed me as a hero, but I felt neither. My inbox filled with hate mail and death threats mixed with messages of support from strangers. Amelia stayed with me in my apartment, her presence the only calm in the storm. Her own parents had called confused but ultimately supportive in their quiet way. They had suspected for years, she admitted. Unlike mine, they didn't see love as a political weapon. My father cut off all contact. The foundation board voted to remove me from my position as director of youth programs effective immediately. My trust fund payments stopped the following week. I had savings, but watching the numbers drop was a daily reminder of the price. Ethan texted, "Once you've ruined everything, don't call." The betrayal from my own blood hurt deepest. I spent days in therapy unpacking the years of internalized shame, the fear that had kept me silent. Amelia encouraged me to journal, to voice the conflicts aloud. One night she found me crying over old family photos. "You don't have to erase them," she said. "Just rewrite the future." But rewriting meant facing more confrontations. A major donor to my father's campaign leaked that he had known about my sexuality for years and had paid private investigators to keep tabs on me. The revelation hit the news like a bomb, fracturing the family image further. My mother reached out in secret, begging me to reconsider for her sake. "I love you, darling, but your father is breaking. Can you at least meet him halfway?" Halfway meant what? Denying Amelia again. I refused, and the call ended in tears on both sides. Amelia and I tried to plan our commitment ceremony in private, but every venue we approached suddenly had no availability. Word had spread. One afternoon, a reporter ambushed us outside a grocery store, shouting questions about whether my father would disown me publicly. I pushed past him, heart racing, Amelia shielding me. That night we talked about leaving DC, maybe moving to California where her cousin lived. The idea felt like running, but staying meant constant siege. Inner conflict raged. Was I selfish for choosing love over family duty? Had I betrayed the people who raised me by living a lie for so long? Amelia sensed my turmoil and one evening pulled me close on the couch. "You are allowed to choose yourself," she whispered. "It's not betrayal, it's survival." Her words helped, but the guilt lingered like a shadow. Then came the moral dilemma that tested everything. My father's office offered a deal through back channels. If I agreed to a joint statement saying our relationship was over, and I was seeking counseling, the foundation would reinstate me, and the family would welcome me back. The offer arrived via email from an anonymous account, but I knew it was him. I stared at the screen for hours, Amelia asleep beside me. Accepting meant safety but erasing us. Refusing meant freedom but isolation. I deleted the email, but the temptation haunted me for days. Public opinion shifted daily. One poll showing 60% of voters in my father's state viewed the scandal as damaging to his re-election. Campaign donations dipped. My brother lost a key endorsement. The weight of their disappointment pressed on me even in silence. Amelia started receiving strange calls at her studio, people posing as clients then asking personal questions. Paranoia set in. We changed numbers, installed better locks. Through it all, our bond deepened in the quiet moments, cooking together, late night talks about dreams beyond the chaos. She wanted to exhibit her photos of queer love. I wanted to start a nonprofit for LGBTQ youth without family strings. But every plan felt fragile under the ongoing pressure. One weekend we drove to a small cabin in the mountains to escape. There in the woods, no signal, no eyes, we held each other, and for the first time I voiced the deepest fear. What if I lose them forever? Amelia kissed my forehead. Then we build new family. The words settled something in me, a small awakening. But returning to the city brought fresh turmoil. A close colleague from the foundation called to say she had been fired for defending me. Another betrayal, not by choice but by association. The circle of collateral damage widened. I began to question every relationship, every loyalty. Was love worth this much pain? The answer came not in grand revelation but in small acts. Amelia making my favorite coffee without asking, holding me when nightmares of disownment woke me. By the end of the month I knew I couldn't go back. The old life was gone. The new one was uncertain, terrifying, but mine. Yet the real test still loomed, a family dinner my mother had secretly arranged, hoping for reconciliation. I agreed to go alone, Amelia waiting at home. As I drove to the estate, the road felt like a path to judgment. What would I say? How much more could I sacrifice before it broke me? The dinner started civil but quickly turned. My father demanded I end it. My mother pleaded. Ethan stayed silent. I left early, the door closing behind me with finality. That night I cried in Amelia's arms, the full cost crashing down. But in the exhaustion a spark of resolve grew. I would not be defined by their rejection. The journey ahead would demand more strength, more choices, but for the first time I believed I could face it. The weeks blurred into a haze of legal meetings and whispered strategy sessions. Amelia and I hired a lawyer to handle the media fallout and the sudden loss of my financial ties. The foundation had frozen my severance, citing moral clauses in my contract. We fought it quietly, knowing the publicity would only hurt more. In private, Amelia began shooting a new series, portraits of queer couples navigating family rejection. I sat for one, the camera capturing the exhaustion in my eyes, the quiet determination. Those sessions became therapy, the lens reflecting back the woman I was becoming. Sarah reached out again, apologetic, offering to go public with her side of the story. I met her at a neutral cafe, the air thick with unresolved hurt. She cried, explaining how her assistant had acted without permission, but the damage was irreversible. I forgave her, not for her sake but for mine. Holding on to anger only chained me to the past. Yet forgiveness didn't erase the scar. My mother's secret texts continued, a lifeline and a torment. She sent photos of the garden we once tended together, reminders of happier times. I replied sparingly, afraid of giving false hope. Then came the ultimate test of loyalty. My father announced a press conference to address the scandal directly. Rumors swirled he would denounce me publicly to salvage his campaign. Amelia and I watched from my apartment, her hand in mine. When he spoke, his voice steady, he said, "My daughter has made personal choices that differ from our family values, but she remains my daughter. I love her and pray she finds her way back." No outright condemnation, but the subtext was clear: come back or stay gone. The statement split the family further. Ethan called me afterward, furious. "You see what you're doing to him? Fix it." I hung up the pain sharp. That night Amelia and I argued for the first time, the stress boiling over. She wanted us to go public with our commitment date to claim our narrative. I hesitated, fearing more backlash. The fight ended in tears, but reconciliation in the dark, with apologies and promises. We set the date 3 months out, a small ceremony in California. Planning it felt like defiance and hope intertwined. Inner conflict deepened as I grappled with morality. Was I right to prioritize my happiness when it hurt so many? The question haunted therapy sessions, where I unpacked childhood lessons about duty, sacrifice, honor. Amelia never pushed, only listened. Her strength became my mirror. A new betrayal surfaced when an old roommate sold emails I had written years ago, expressing doubts about coming out. The tabloids printed excerpts, twisting my words into proof. I was confused, not committed. The pain of private thoughts exposed left me raw. Amelia held me through the night, whispering that my past doubts didn't define our present. We grew closer, the shared vulnerability forging steel. Financially, we tightened belts, selling my designer clothes, booking cheaper flights. I started freelance consulting for small nonprofits, the work fulfilling but humbling. Amelia picked up extra gigs. Together we made it work, the simplicity grounding us. One afternoon we visited a support group for estranged LGBTQ adults. Hearing stories like mine validated the struggle. A young woman shared how her family chose politics over her. I cried silently, recognizing the mirror. Afterward, Amelia and I walked the streets of DC one last time before our move. The city that had been home now felt foreign. We stopped at the Lincoln Memorial, the marble steps cool under us. I turned to her and said, "I choose us every day." She smiled, the first real one in weeks. The moral dilemmas continued when my brother leaked a private family document suggesting I had been cut from the will. The news hit hard, but I refused to respond publicly. Instead, I wrote a letter to my father, one I never sent, pouring out the love and the pain, the wish for understanding without conditions. Amelia read it, nodding. Some bridges burn so new ones can be built. The week before our flight west, a final confrontation came. My mother showed up at the apartment unannounced. She hugged me tight, then pulled back, eyes pleading. "Come home, Alondra. We can work through this." I stood firm. "Mom, I am home with Amelia." The tears flowed, but she left without slamming the door. Progress or goodbye, I couldn't tell. Packing boxes that night, Amelia and I shared memories, the laughter mixing with sorrow. The cost had been high, relationships fractured, identity tested, but the awakening was real. I was no longer the hidden daughter, but a woman claiming her truth. As the plane lifted off toward California, the past receded. New challenges waited, but with Amelia beside me, I felt ready. The drama wasn't over, but the chapter of silence had closed forever. California welcomed us with open skies and a sense of possibility. We rented a small house in a quiet coastal town near Amelia's cousin, the ocean-era balm for wounded spirits. My days filled with setting up the nonprofit. I had dreamed of a safe space for young people facing family rejection. Funding was scarce at first, but small donations from supporters trickled in. Amelia exhibited her photo series at a local gallery, the opening night packed with well-wishers. For the first time in months, I felt seen, not as scandal but as part of a community. Yet the past followed. My father's campaign ads avoided mentioning me, but opponents used the scandal against him. Polls tightened. Ethan won his primary, but barely, the family name tainted. Late-night calls from unknown numbers brought more threats or pleas. I changed my number again. The inner work continued, therapy twice a week, unpacking the guilt that still surfaced in quiet moments. Was I responsible for my family's pain? The therapist challenged me gently. "You are responsible for your truth, not their reactions." Amelia thrived in the new environment, her photography gaining recognition. We planned the commitment ceremony for a private beach at sunset, simple vows, close friends. As the date neared, excitement mixed with anxiety. What if someone from the press found out? We kept it secret, inviting only trusted people. 2 days before the ceremony, my mother called. Her voice shaky. "I want to be there, Alondra. If you'll have me." Shock froze me. After months of silence, this. I talked it over with Amelia, who said, "The choice is yours, but if it brings peace, do it." I agreed on one condition: no press, no agenda, just family. She arrived the day before, her eyes lighting up at the sight of our home. The reunion was tearful, cautious. She hugged Amelia, whispering, "Thank you for loving my daughter." That night around the table, tension eased into tentative conversation. She shared how my father had softened slightly after losing a key donor. Not forgiveness, but cracks in the wall. The ceremony dawned clear and golden. On the beach with waves whispering, I stood in a simple white dress, Amelia in soft linen. Vows exchanged, tears and laughter. My mother watched from the front row, her presence a bridge I never expected. Yet even in joy, the moral questions lingered. Had I earned this happiness at too great a cost? The reception was small but joyful. For hours we danced under string lights, the weight lifted. But drama returned when Ethan texted a photo of my father alone at the estate. The image stung. I stepped away to call him, but it went to voicemail. I left a message: "Dad, I still love you. Come see us when you're ready." No reply came. Back in the moment, Amelia pulled me close. "This is our life now." The awakening felt complete yet fragile. Over the following months, the nonprofit grew. Volunteers joined, stories of healing multiplied. I spoke at events, sharing my journey, the room often silent with recognition. Amelia documented it all, her lens capturing resilience. Family ties remained strained, but my mother visited twice more, each time bringing small gifts, mending slowly. The ultimate sacrifice came when I received official notice the Voss Estate Trust had been revised, excluding me entirely. The letter arrived on a Tuesday, cold legal language confirming the break. I read it aloud to Amelia, then burned it in the backyard fire pit. The flames symbolized release. No more waiting for approval. That night we sat on the beach, the same spot as our ceremony. I turned to her and said I would choose you again every time. She smiled, the moonlight soft on her face. The cost had been steep, but the reward authentic love unhidden. Yet one final confrontation loomed. My father announced his retirement from politics, citing health, but insiders whispered the scandal had eroded his base beyond repair. Ethan called, furious, blaming me. The call ended in shouts, but I hung up without regret. The cycle of blame had to stop. In its place I built boundaries and peace. The drama of exposure had forced every choice into sharp relief: family versus self, duty versus desire. Through it all, Amelia stood as my constant, the partner who never asked me to be less. As seasons changed, I realized the true victory wasn't winning back the old life, but creating one true to who I was. The psychological scars remained, but they no longer defined me. I had paid the price and found it worth every tear. A year after the move, life had settled into a rhythm of purpose and quiet joy. The nonprofit thrived with a permanent space and a waiting list of young people seeking support. I led workshops on identity and resilience, the faces before me mirrors of my younger self. Amelia's photography book launched to critical acclaim, featuring images from our journey. The fitting room shadows transformed into light. We traveled to book signings, small towns where strangers shared their own stories of love and loss. My mother became a regular visitor, staying weeks at a time, helping with events, her presence healing old wounds without erasing them. She never spoke of my father directly, but her silence said enough. He remained in Virginia, the estate a fortress of unresolved pain. Ethan won his election, but the victory felt hollow according to mutual friends. I sent a congratulatory note, no response. The distance no longer ached as it once did. One crisp autumn day, Amelia and I hiked a trail overlooking the Pacific, the wind carrying salt and freedom. She stopped at a viewpoint, pulling a small box from her pocket. Inside, 2 simple rings engraved with our initials, and the date of the fitting room that changed everything. "Will you marry me for real this time?" she asked, eyes bright. Laughter bubbled up through tears. Yes, 1,000 times. The wedding was larger than the commitment, but still intimate, on the same beach with my mother walking me down the aisle. No press, no drama, just love witnessed. As vows echoed the waves, I thought of every sacrifice, every betrayal, every awakening. The path had been jagged, but it led here. Months later, a letter arrived from my father, handwritten, the first in over a year. It was short. "I miss you. Perhaps one day. No demands, no conditions." I read it to Amelia, then placed it in a drawer, not ready to reply, but not discarding it either. The gesture cracked the last wall. Progress, not perfection. The nonprofit expanded to online resources, reaching thousands. I spoke at a national conference, the audience diverse, stories intersecting mine. Afterward, a young woman approached, thanking me for showing it was possible to choose love without losing yourself entirely. Her words lingered, the full circle moment. Reflecting at home, I journaled the lessons. Family is not always blood, but chosen. Truth demands courage. Love asks everything and gives more. Amelia joined me on the porch, wine in hand, watching the sunset. We had lost much but gained ourselves. The drama that began in that Manhattan boutique had forced every character to face their truths. My father, his legacy versus unconditional love. My mother, her role as mediator. Ethan, his ambition versus brotherhood. Amelia, her patience versus fear of abandonment. Me, my identity versus inherited duty. Each paid a price, each awakened in their own way. As the sky darkened, I turned to her, the woman who stood through it all. "We did it," I said. She smiled. "We are doing it every day." Life continued with new challenges, grant applications, community programs, but the core remained steady. No more hiding, no more ultimatums. The societal prejudice still existed, headlines occasionally resurfacing old photos, but they no longer defined us. We lived openly, proudly. One evening my mother called, excited. "Your father asked about you today. He saw your TED Talk." Small steps, but steps. I smiled, hanging up the phone. Healing was not linear but possible. The story that started with a ripped curtain ended not in ruin, but in reconstruction. A new legacy built on authenticity, not expectation. As I close this chapter, the question remains for all who hear it. When family legacy and personal truth collide, demanding you sacrifice one for the other, was choosing love the right decision? Or did the cost prove it was never truly a choice at all?